Our topic of discussion for the day is translation in prokaryotes and in eukaryotes. We will primarily focus on the prokaryotic system and then we will just see the differences between the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic system. So first, let's come to the point, what is translation? Translation is the process by which an mRNA molecule which is generated by the process of transcription from a DNA molecule is getting transcribed to form, rather translated to form a protein. So it is a process by which a protein or a polypeptide chain is formed. It is a process by which a polypeptide chain is formed from an mRNA molecule. So this entire process of protein synthesis is translation, which is taking place both in eukaryotes and prokaryotes. In the case of prokaryotes, it is taking place inside the for the case of prokaryotes, it is taking place inside the cytoplasm, and for the eukaryotes, it is taking place also in the cytoplasm. The difference in the two is that in the case of prokaryotes, the mRNA which is synthesized is also formed inside the cytoplasm, meaning the transcription process takes place inside the cytoplasm, whereas in the case of eukaryotes, the transcription process takes place inside the cytoplasm, but the translation process takes place inside the cytoplasm itself. Actually the transcription process in the case of eukaryotes takes place inside the nucleus, not in the cytoplasm. So now, what are the requirements of the translation? Translation obviously requires a mRNA molecule which is going to be translated to the polypeptide chain, which is derived from the protein synthesis, which is derived from the process of transcription. So mRNA is the transcript which is being derived. So it is a transcript. mRNA is the transcript, or the product which is formed after the transcription. Then we have got a tRNA molecule. tRNA molecule, as we already have discussed, tRNA is a structure which is having a clover leaf-like structure. It is having a 3' CCA loop, which is actually acting as a acceptor arm for an amino acid. So this is the structure of the tRNA, and this part is actually having a 3' OH group. This 3' OH group to this 3' OH, 3' hydroxyl group is getting esterified the amino acid. So to this 3' hydroxyl group, the amino acid is getting attached, and by a process of esterification to this, so this is known as the acceptor arm. So this is known as the acceptor arm because it has the property to accept a amino acid. And this side, this loop, which is actually known as the anticodon loop, because this loop is actually detecting the subsequent amino acid which is present in the mRNA. So this is the anticodon loop, which is actually detecting the adjacent amino acid sequences, and this 3' OH group is what is known as this upper end is known as the acceptor arm, because to this the amino acid is getting attached. Now, what is a ribosome? In the case of prokaryotes, we know that we have a ribosome which is basically 70S. So 70S ribosome has a larger subunit and a smaller subunit. The larger subunit, as we all know, is 50S, and the smaller subunit is 30S. The 50S subunit can further be divided into 16S and 5S, whereas the 30S can be divided into can be divided into 28S and 5S, and 30S can be divided into 16S. And the 50S subunit consists of 34 proteins along with the 28S and 5S, and the 30S consists of 16S rRNA plus 21 protein molecules. So this is the basic structure of an amino acid of a ribosome molecule which is present in the prokaryotes. So prokaryotic ribosome consists of two parts, a larger subunit made up of 50S and the smaller subunit made up of 30S. The larger subunit is further be subdivided into 28S and 5S, whereas the 30S subunit can be divided into 16S rRNA and consisting of 21 proteins in addition. Now, coming to the factors. So as we have already discussed, like the factors which we had in the case of transcription, we also here have brought some factors, which are the initiation factors, elongation factors, and the terminating factors, or the release factors. So these are the factors which will be coming once we start the steps of the process of translation. So the first step for the translation process is basically the process of activation. First step is the activation step. Activation step, in this activation step, what happens is that a tRNA molecule gets attached to an amino acid, and in this step we require an ATP molecule with the help of amino acyl tRNA synthetase will lead to the formation of amino acyl tRNA. So we are getting a tRNA molecule which is basically having a amino acid attached to the 3' O hydroxyl group. So this process is known as the charging. This process is known as the charging of the tRNA. Charging of the tRNA, or the activation of the tRNA. So tRNA plus amino acid plus ATP is giving rise to amino acyl tRNA. In this step we generate an AMP along with it, not AMP, we get PPI. So this PPI will further be hydrolyzed to a 2PI. So this cleavage of 2PI or by the enzyme pyrophosphatase will actually provide the energy for driving this process or driving this reaction of amino acyl tRNA synthetase. In the case of prokaryotes, we are having for the protein synthesis we have 20 different types of amino acyl tRNA synthetase. So with tRNA synthetase. So for each amino acid, we have a dedicated amino acyl tRNA synthetase which performs the function. So this is the step of the activation or charging of amino acids, or charging of a tRNA with an amino acid to give rise to what is known as the amino acyl tRNA. Now coming to the initiation step. What is initiation? Initiation is the process by which the ribosome gets attached to the mRNA and subsequently it leads to the formation of the polypeptide sequence. So what is initiation? Initiation, so in the case of prokaryotes, let's concentrate on the prokaryotes first. If this is an mRNA which is 5' to 3' in direction, suppose we have brought a sequence. First there will be the binding of the smaller subunit of the ribosome. There will be the binding of the smaller subunit of the ribosome, that is the 30S subunit. So first there will be the binding of the 30S subunit to the mRNA molecule. The sequence where the binding takes place, where the binding of the smaller subunit to the mRNA molecule takes place, is what is known as the Scheider-Gallno sequence. This Scheider-Gallno sequence is basically thought to be complementary to the 16S rRNA which is present in the inside the 30S ribosomal subunit. So this is actually complementary, and the Shiner-Dalton sequence is AGGA GGU. So this sequence is AGGA GGU sequence is the Shiner-Dalton sequence which we have, and this Shiner-Dalton sequence present in the mRNA will help in the attachment of the smaller subunit of the ribosome. Now, after the binding of the smaller subunit takes place, 10 base pairs downstream is the point which is the start point of the translation. The translation start point is usually AUG. So the translation start point is AUG. This AUG in the case of eukaryotes will actually code for the amino acid methionine, whereas in the case of eubacteria, the first AUG will code for formyl methionine in place of methionine. So the first AUG which will be present as a start codon, which is actually a start codon, will code for formyl methionine in the case of prokaryotes, whereas it will code for only methionine in the case of eukaryotes. This AUG, if present in the case of prokaryotes as well, in the middle of any sequence, will actually code for the amino acid methionine itself and not for formyl methionine. So it is just for the initiation codon that AUG will code for formyl methionine in the case of prokaryotes. This 16S binding to the Shiner-Dalton sequence will lead to the first step of the initiation process. The initiation process is completed when the larger subunit binds. So the binding of the smaller and the larger subunit will complete the process of initiation. So we are having one is known as the Shiner-Dalton sequence where the 16S rRNA is binding, and after the binding of the 30S subunit will the larger subunit bind. Now this entire structure of the ribosome is the structure which is required for the process of translation to take place. Now this translation machinery now will have two main sites. One is the P site and the other is the A site. One is the P site or the peptidyl site and A site or the activation site. So now what happens? Suppose there is an mRNA chain which is 5 prime to 3 prime in direction, and there is a code for AUG. Here we have AUG. Now there is a codon, there is a tRNA which is already charged with methionine. So this methionine will be present over here. So this is having a charged amino acid which will be having methionine at the top. So this is coding for this AUG, the 5 prime 3 prime methionine, 5 prime to 3 prime mRNA will code for methionine. The next 3 codon which is present, so the next 3 codons which is present will actually be present, will come into the A site. So for this initiation process to take place, in the case of prokaryotes, we have got 3 initiation factors. We have got 3 initiation factors for the case of prokaryotes. Initiation factor 1, initiation factor 2 and initiation factor 3. Initiation factor 1 will prevent the binding of the amino acyl tRNA to the A site. Initiation factor 2 will translocate the amino acyl tRNA, the first amino acyl tRNA, from the A site to the P site. which codes for methionine in the case of eukaryotes and formyl methionine in the case of prokaryotes. And the initiation factor 3 will actually help in the proper binding of the smaller and the larger subunits. Therefore, the initiation factor 3 plays an important role in the case of initiating, because until and unless the smaller and the larger subunit gets lodged together over the mRNA, the process of initiation cannot take place. Once this binding takes place, then only we can say that the initiation process can start. In the case of eukaryotes, there are many more initiation factors which are required for the process, and in place of Schindler-Dalmo sequence, we have something known as the Kozak sequence. So this sequence is required for the proper location of the mRNA. Moreover, in this case, as we know that the eukaryotic ribosome is actually 80S ribosome. The eukaryotic ribosome is actually 80S, which can be divided into 40S and 60S. This 40S ribosome will first attach with the tRNA molecule, and form the 48S rRNA. This 48S rRNA then binds to the mRNA molecule, and therefore it starts forming the initiation complex. Therefore forms the initiation complex. In the case of the eukaryotes, we have got a 80S ribosomal subunit, whereas we have a 70S ribosomal subunit in the case of prokaryotes. This 70S ribosomal subunit consists of a 30S subunit which has a 16S rRNA sequence, which is complementary to the Schindler-Dalmo sequence, which is absent in the case of the initiation complex in the eukaryotes. In place of Schindler-Dalmo sequence which is present in the prokaryotes, we are having a Kozak sequence in the case of eukaryotes, which is helping in the formation of the proper orientation and proper localization of the ribosomal subunit, and therefore the initiation of the process of translation. So this is the overall process of translation which we have. Now our next process is elongation. Elongation is the process in which one by one, each step after each step, we are leading to the formation of a peptide bond, and therefore we are getting a polypeptide chain. So when there is here we require two types of factors. One is EF2, another is EFG. These two factors are required. F2 is a factor which requires GTP. This F2 GTP complex binds with the tRNA molecule, and therefore helps in the attachment of the F2 GTP and the tRNA complex and drives it to the A site, to enter the A site. Moreover, the GTP molecule will give rise to GDP plus PI, will get hydrolyzed to form GDP and PI, and this is required. This provides the energy for the F2 GDP complex to enter inside the A site. And we are having another complex which is the EFG, which helps in the transportation or the transfer. It's actually a translocase, and this helps in translocase, and therefore it helps in the translocation of the entire ribosomal subunit 3 nucleotide downstream. Therefore the B site will move in place of the A site, and there will be A site which is generated in a new codon over a new codon. So the translocase will actually helps in the shifting of the ribosomal subunit over the mRNA molecule, so that the formation of peptidyl bond can take place. So in the P site, we are having the P site is known as the peptidyl site, where there will be formation of the peptide bond. So if suppose there is a subsequent amino acid, there is threonine, there will be an amino acid which have got threonine. In the P site, the methionine and threonine will form a peptide bond. Peptide bond is nothing but a CONH bond. This is a peptide bond, and this bond takes place with the help of an enzyme which is known as peptidyl transferase. So we require an enzyme called peptidyl transferase for the joining, or rather for the proper for the peptide bond formation to take place between two amino acids, which is the CONH bond or an amide bond. So this bonding, after it takes place in the P side, the uncharged tRNA which was present, which is formed once the methionine has been joined to the peptide chain, leaves through another side, which is the E side. So there is another side, E side, through which the uncharged tRNA molecule will exit through the exit out of the ribosomal subunit. So this is required. So this E side is also a side through which the uncharged, or the molecule which is formed after getting uncharged after the binding of the peptide bond has taken place. So this is the process of elongation, and in this way subsequent amino acids have been getting into the A side, and then the formation of the peptidyl bond or the peptide bond takes place, and it moves on. So this is the process of elongation. Finally, coming to the process of termination. Termination is a process which is basically, in the case of the translation, it is basically requiring certain codon such as UAG, UGA and UAA. UAG, UGA and UAA. These are basically the stop codons which are present in the case of both the prokaryotes and eukaryotes. These codons will basically help to actually prevent or stop the process of the translation, or bring the process of translation to an end. So these are known as the stop codons. These are known as the stop codons. UAG is known as the amber codon, UAA is known as the opal codon, and the UGA is known as the ocher codon. So this amber codon, ocher codon and opal codon. Now we are having certain release factors in the case of prokaryotes: release factor 1, release factor 2 and release factor 3. Release factor 1 will help in the binding, will help it to release, helps in the detection of UAG and UAA, whereas the release factor 2 helps in the detection of UAA and UGA. Whereas release factor 3 will help to disintegrate the two subunits of the prokaryotic ribosome, means the 60S and 30S ribosomal, the 50S and 30S ribosomal subunit, and therefore leading to the dissociation of the ribosomal subunit and bringing about the termination of the translation process. In the case of eukaryotes, we are having ERF1 and ERF3. Eukaryotic release factor 1, eukaryotic release factor 3. Eukaryotic release factor 1 will lead to the dissociation of all the three types of will detect all the three types of the stop codons: UAA, UGA and UAA, UGA and also UAG, whereas the ERF or eukaryotic release factor 3 do not have any proper function. It will rather help in the dissociation process. So this is what we have for the entire process of translation. Now coming to this is the overall part of the prokaryotic and eukaryotic translation, and it is basically the same process which is taking place in the case of prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Only difference lies in the initiation step, which we have already discussed, and moreover the initiation step also, in the initiation step, the search for the Closeup sequence in the case of eukaryotes requires a helicase, which is a very important step. So that helicase is very important for the search of the proper Closeup sequence. So this Closeup sequence which requires a helicase activity. Now coming to the clinical aspects of the translation. As we have already discussed, that translation is actually a process which is taking place both in the case of eukaryotes and prokaryotes. So now the prokaryotic translation is inhibited by various drugs like chloramphenicol, furamycin, fusidic acid and streptomycin, which are all protein synthesis inhibitors, which are very, very well known common antibiotics like streptomycin, chloramphenicol, fusidic acid. These are very well known antibiotics which are used in daily life. These are all protein synthesis inhibitors. Whereas in the case of eukaryotes, we have various anti-cancer drugs which are being used, which are actually helping in the process of which are actually helping in the anti-cancer drugs, which helps in the preventing the metastasis. So these are the drugs, anti-cancer drugs are the various molecules which are being required to inhibit the protein synthesis or the translation process in the case of human beings or in the case of eukaryotes. Now, there is certain things which are known as the post-translational modifications. Post-translational modification is a feature which is present exclusively in the eukaryotes, and this post-translational modification is a very important step, and the post-translational modification may include many features. Like the post-translational modification can be several things, such as it can be an elimination of a peptide chain which may convert proinsulin to insulin. So there is a elimination of a stretch of protein from proinsulin to insulin. Such an elimination of a peptide chain is which can be classified as one of the types of post-translational modification. It can be just a change in the shape of the molecule to bring it to a state functional state, or a functional form, rather functional conformation rather. This functional conformation is brought about by the protein known as chaperone. Then we are having gamma carboxylation of protein, as it is seen in the case of vitamin K, which is required for the proper activation of the various blood clotting pathways as well. And then we also have another, which is the glycosylation. Glycosylation is also seen with the help of threonine. Threonine is used as a common carbohydrate